Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today in this installment I'm going to teach you how to use GeoGebra to find some basic information from a function. In this case we're going to learn how to make a table of values, find a max, and find a zero. Now to do that, the first thing I'm going to need is a function, and you'll see here that I've got my workspace already set up for myself. Here I've got my algebra bar and my input bar, and I've even got my function inputted. What we're going to do is we're going to graph this function that I'm going to show on the screen right here, and we're going to find all this information about it, including a table of values. So if you want to follow along, these are the keys that I did, but it might be kind of annoying to switch back between YouTube and your iPad. Alright, all that said and done, we need to graph a function. You'll see that I have it down there in the formula bar, and the only thing that you need to be aware of is that I'm going to call my function f. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here, and it'll pop up there. And then again, as always, you can change the color of your function, etc. I'm going to go blue. I'm going to make it a little thicker so it'll show up on here. And you also notice that we have, I wrote a rational function for a reason, and that was so that it had a couple asymptotes. I am going to put in an equation for the one at x equals 3, and I'm just going to highlight that to make it a different color and make it just a little thicker and dashed so we can see that. So now we have a nice picture to work with. So first things first, if you wanted to graph this on a piece of paper, you'd probably want a table of values to do your best to estimate where each point on the graph is. So I'm going to show you how to use GeoGebra to do that. Down in the input bar, all you have to do is choose your favorite capital letter, or actually it doesn't even have to be capital, it doesn't even have to be a single variable, but you're going to define a variable. I'm going to go capital B if you want to follow along. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask me, do I want to create sliders? Yes, we do. And this slider is going to be the point, like in a graphing calculator where you'd say, I want my table to start here and I want to go up by this interval. Well, we're going to program that into this slider. So by clicking and holding on a tablet or right-clicking on a PC, you can get to object properties, or you can also go to the little options over here and it'll pick up. And you're going to change your minimum and your maximum. Now I'm going to play around with this area of the function. I'm going to just ignore that stuff. So I'm interested from about 3 to 10. So I'm going to input those values right there. And in my table, I'm going to make the increment go up by 0.5. You can change it to 0.1 if you want to be that specific, but for this, I'm just going to go with that. So now you'll see that my slider goes up by 0.5 and starts at 3. So I'm going to bring it all the way back to the beginning, and yes, that's kind of important for what we're about to do. And then we're going to define a point based on that. So I'm going to define a point called capital P. To define a point called capital P, we go P colon and then parenthesis. And the point that I want is just a point that's on the curve. So the x-coordinate is going to be whatever B is from the slider, and the y-coordinate is going to be f of capital B. And once I have that code plugged in, I can go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see a point would normally pop up, but you know what? My beginning value is 3, and that's right on the asymptote. So if I put that over a little bit, you'll see P pop up. And right here, now we can change the size of P so you can actually see it. Give me one moment for that. So now I have giant point P that's attached to my slider right here. So if I move the slider, point P slides. So I'm going to go ahead and set that back to 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to record the x and y coordinates of P, so I guess I will need P back on the screen, into a spreadsheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the big options bar, and we're going to show the spreadsheet just like you show the algebra bar and the formula bar, and you'll see that there's already some values in there, but we're going to delete those, and you'll see that a spreadsheet pops up, and there's a couple rows showing, there are a couple columns showing, and that's all we need. You'll also notice that it's reading out the coordinates of P right there, and that's what we're going to record into the spreadsheet. So either press and hold or right click, and you'll see that now there's an option to record to spreadsheet. You're going to select that and then move your slider slowly all the way through its range. And we did miss that one spot at 3.5, so I'm going to move back for that, and you'll see that it appears right there. And that's how you create a table of values. Okay, the next thing that I told you we're going to figure out today is how to find a zero. And you'll notice that we've got one right here and we've got one right here. The one I want to find first is right here. And the way that we do that in GeoGebra is it doesn't call it a 0, it doesn't call it an x-intercept, it calls it a root. So we're going to start typing the word root. And you'll notice that a whole bunch of suggestions come up, and this is a pretty common thing. The one that we're going to use is the third one that says root, square bracket, the function's name, the start value that you'd like to start searching. So this is kind of like the left bound, right bound question. So give me the x value that you'd like me to start looking for a 0, and give me the x value that you'd want me to stop. So you know it's between here and here. So our function's name is f, and we'd like to find a root somewhere between 8 and 10. And you can choose pretty much as big of a range as you want. Your computer has a lot of calculating power, whereas a calculator has less. Go ahead and hit enter, and you'll notice that a point pops up. You get coordinates for it over here. You could trace it over into the spreadsheet as well to get a more accurate answer. If I wanted to find this one here, this one gets a little tricky because we just have to be a little bit careful about this asymptote. If I type in root f, something that's behind that asymptote, say like 2, comma, I suppose I'm going to need commas here, 2, comma, and then say 4, so I'm looking for the 0 between 2 and 4, and you'd think that that wouldn't be too much of a problem. You'll notice that it does recognize that asymptote and it gives you an undefined answer. So if instead I type in root f, comma, and then I'm just going to choose something slightly bigger than 3.01, comma, 4, it won't have any problem with that. It puts a point right here at D. It spits out a coordinate of 3.21 in this case. Okay, and then finally, the last thing I want to show you how to do is find a maximum or a minimum. And it's very intuitive again. All you have to do is start typing the word max, and you'll notice that it does shorten it to max. And again, very similar thing. What's the function's name? Where do you want to start looking? Where do you want to stop looking? So let's go f 3.2 and 4. So it's somewhere, that max, well, maybe it's not. Let's put 5 there. Close the brackets, hit enter, and you'll notice that E pops up right on the crest of that maximum, and the coordinates get spit out right there. So that's all we need to know for the first bit of our activity. Finding zeros, finding maxes, how to graph, and being able to graph that vertical line might be helpful for you too.